Most people believe financial security is something you arrive at, not something you build. They imagine a future moment, a bigger salary, a lucky break, a sudden windfall that will finally lift them out of uncertainty and into safety. Until then, they simply survive, paycheck to paycheck, telling themselves that real progress will begin later, once things improve. But later rarely comes on its own. In Japan, there is a quiet philosophy that turns this thinking upside down. It does not wait for security to arrive. It builds security, deliberately, 1% at a time, starting from wherever you already stand. This is the Kaizen method, and it has carried people from low salaries to lasting financial peace, not through luck, but through patience. Let me tell you about Kenji. He worked at a small hardware shop in a quiet town outside Nagoya. His salary was barely enough to cover his needs, let alone his hopes. He watched friends chase promotions and side hustles, exhausting themselves in search of a breakthrough that never quite arrived. Kenji chose a different path. Each week, he set aside a tiny amount, barely noticeable, almost symbolic. He didn't call it an investment. He called it a habit. His friends teased him gently. "That's too small to matter," they said. Kenji simply nodded and continued. Week after week. Season after season. And here is what most people miss. Kenji wasn't trying to get rich quickly. He was proving to himself, quietly, that he could be trusted with small amounts, before he ever had to be trusted with large ones. To understand why this works, imagine a river and a single stone. A river does not carve through solid rock in a single flood. It moves gently, day after day, patiently pressing against the same surface, again and again. To anyone watching for a single afternoon, nothing seems to happen. The stone looks unchanged. But return after many seasons, and you will find a smooth curve, a groove, a passage, carved not by force, but by repetition. The river never doubted the stone would yield. It simply kept moving without stopping. Your 1% is that river. Your financial worries are that stone. It will not look like progress at first. But time, applied gently and without pause, reshapes even the hardest circumstances. Most people misunderstand financial security. They think it is built through dramatic action, a big investment, a risky bet, a sudden leap. So they wait for the courage or the capital for that leap, and in waiting, nothing moves at all. This is the quiet trap. Kaizen teaches the opposite truth. Security is not built by intensity. It is built by consistency. Psychologically, small financial habits do not trigger fear or resistance. Saving 1% doesn't feel like sacrifice, so the mind doesn't rebel against it. It simply becomes normal. And once something becomes normal, it becomes permanent. This is the real mistake most people make. They attempt large, dramatic changes that collapse within weeks, instead of small, quiet changes that survive years. Financial security is rarely won. It is accumulated, 1%, without stopping. So how do you actually move from a low salary toward real financial security? There are 3 areas where the 1% Kaizen method changes everything. The first is saving. Set aside 1% of your income the moment you receive it, before it has a chance to disappear into daily spending. It will feel too small to matter. That is exactly why it works. It asks nothing of you that you cannot give. The second is awareness. Spend 1% of your day, just a few quiet minutes, reviewing where your money actually went. Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Kenji did this every Sunday evening without fail. This small habit slowly turned confusion about money into quiet, calm clarity. The third is protection. Use 1% of your effort each month to strengthen what you already have. Reading one article on saving, learning one new financial term, asking one honest question about a bill or a subscription you stopped noticing. Financial security is not only about growing money. It is about quietly guarding what you've already built. Years passed. Kenji's friends were still waiting for the raise, the bonus, the breakthrough that would finally make saving possible. Kenji was no longer waiting. His 1%, carried forward without stopping, had become a fund that let him breathe during a slow season at the shop, when many of his friends panicked over a single missed paycheck. He had not become wealthy in any dramatic sense. But he was secure, steady, unshaken, at peace, while those around him still measured their safety by their next paycheck. He hadn't found a shortcut. He had simply refused to wait, and instead, let time do what time always does for those who begin. This is the quiet Japanese path from a low salary to real financial security. It does not ask you to earn more before you start. It asks you to begin now, with 1%, and trust the river to carve its way through the stone. The people who wait for a bigger salary will still be waiting next year, telling themselves the same story about not having enough to start. The people who begin, quietly, patiently, 1% at a time, will look back one day and find themselves standing on ground far steadier than they ever expected. So don't wait for security to arrive. Start building it today with what is already in your hands. If this reached you at the right time, consider subscribing to Will and Wisdom, and tell me in the comments, what is the 1% you'll set aside starting today? I'll see you in the next video.